Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. On today's video, I'm going to be reviewing and giving you my thoughts on a stability shoe from Asics. It's their Gel Kayano 31. Now I did purchase these shoes with my own money and they retail for 165 US dollars. I ordered mine true to size and for me, they fit perfectly, both in terms of the length as well as the width of the shoe. On my scales, these came in at 10.6 ounces or 300 grams. Now that is a little bit lighter than the stated weight that Asics has on their website, but that's always a good thing. Lighter is always better, at least in my opinion anyway. Now, I'm going to start with the upper. They're using an engineered mesh material for the upper. That's about 99% of the running shoes that are out there today. So they're really comfortable. The material is very comfortable on foot. It does have a little bit of stretch to it. And you can see that up here, especially in the toe box. The other thing that you can note in the toe box is that it is a wide toe box. That feels really comfortable. Plenty of room for me to be able to splay my toes. And it does have lots of perforations. So there's pretty good ventilation there. And those perforations do extend both on the lateral side as well as the medial side of the shoe back to right about where the heel counter starts. I wouldn't say that these are highly breathable. I would say that they're moderate, but for a daily trainer, they're pretty much right there in the ballpark. I would like them to be a little cooler on foot on these really hot days that we've been having. But the trade-off is, if you live in an area like I do, where we have 4 different seasons, we're always just a few months away from snow. And with an upper like this, that kind of is in the middle of the road when it comes to breathability. While it's not as cool as I might like on hot days, that means that on the colder days, my feet are going to be comfortable as well. So they're right in that middle road in terms of the breathability of the upper. So plenty of ventilation, but they're not, I didn't feel like the air was gushing through the toe box to keep my feet cool, but they were comfortable. A little warm on really hot days, but that's to be expected. Okay, in terms of the rest of the upper, it's pretty basic, and it's a daily trainer, and it looks and feels like a daily trainer, but it's really, really comfortable. I noticed that right off the bat. As soon as I stepped into these shoes, the comfort level is definitely there. Now these, while they're a stability shoe, they're also a max cushion shoe, and that's a really tough niche market to try to get into because stability shoes inherently aren't necessarily soft or max cushion because they have to provide you with some support in order to be able to keep you or get you into a healthy level of pronation. So oftentimes, they feel a little bit clunky or rigid, stiff, definitely not max cushion, but they did a really good job here. So we're going to talk a lot more about that when I get to the midsole. Now, let's take a look at the lace enclosure system. So we're just going to work our way around the upper and we'll get to that midsole here in a second. It's a standard eyelet chain. Nothing crazy going on here. The eyelets are slightly offset as we look up the eyelet chain, and they do have an extra eyelet up here at the top in case you want to run with a runner's knot, which I typically do about 99.9% of the time. I felt like I got locked in and secure across the midfoot, so I think it's doing its job. And around the eyelets themselves, they do have a little extra plastic material to give it some durability, so you don't have to worry about your laces ripping through that upper. The tongue is moderately padded, but I think they got it just about right. I think they did a really good job here. It's not an overstuffed tongue where they maxed it out for comfort purposes. But it's not a minimalistic tongue either. So again, it's right there in the middle of the road, but it did a really good job protecting me from the laces. So I never felt the laces cutting across the top of my midfoot at all, ever. And the tongue's not going to move around. They have it in place with gussets on both sides, and then they also have a pass-through loop that your laces run through. So between the 2 gussets and that pass-through, again, that tongue's not going anywhere. You don't have to worry about it migrating around at all. The one thing that I was a little nervous about or concerned about when I was first looking at these shoes when I pulled them out of the box is it seemed like the tongue might be a little bit short, or that it could be, especially if you're running with the runner's knot, where it kind of brings the laces up a little bit higher on that eyelet chain than if you weren't running with the runner's knot. But I didn't have any issues with that. The tongue, when I got them on foot and cinched those laces down, it was perfect. It was perfect. I think they did a really good job there. Really good job. Okay, so let's talk about the padding around the heel collar and the tab of the shoe. They have a lot of padding here, so they've definitely built comfort into the Asics Gel 31. Plenty of padding around the heel collar, lots of padding back in the around your Achilles to keep you comfortable while you're running. And this is what I often call pillow style padding, because to me it just reminds me of a pillow that rests up around the collar of the shoe, but it does taper down slightly into the foot bed. Now that creates a nice heel pocket for your heel to set in. Found it to be really comfortable. And with that lace enclosure system and this heel pocket, those things combined, I felt like I was really secure and that my heel wasn't moving around. It wasn't sliding up or down or side to side. They also added a pull tab back here. It's got a bit of stretch to it. I have used that every time I put these shoes on my feet, so it's useful and I'm glad that it's there. Now, when we're talking about the heel counter in a stability shoe, you want to have some structure there. So let's see how much structure that they included in the Asics Gel 31. To do that, I'm going to put it on my shoulder, which I've done already, and I'm going to give it the pinch chest. So I'm going to try to pinch the material together and just kind of see how much resistance is there. So let's give that a try. And you can, boy, there's a lot of structure. There is a lot of structure in that heel counter, plenty to keep you keep your heel in place. And if I try to push on it going forward, again, that is really, really solid. I think it's probably one of the more solid heel counters of the shoes that I own. So, I mean, there is a lot of structure back here. So if that's something that's of interest to you, he's got it going on for sure. All right, now let's talk about the fun part. And for me, that's the midsole. It's often what I refer to as the engine of the shoe, and Asics did not disappoint here. They're using their Flight Foam Blast Plus Eco midsole material. Of course, the Eco means that they're using some recycled material. I always appreciate it when companies are environmentally conscious and reusing materials in their shoe build. So kudos to Asics for doing that. Appreciate it. There's lots of Flight Foam Blast material underfoot. They have 40 millimeters in the heel and 30 millimeters up in the forefoot. So they have a 10 millimeter offset. I do like that 10 millimeter offset. That's one of the things that I have enjoyed about the Brooks Ghost is they have a tall or a big offset. I think there's a 12 millimeter, something like that. And if you overpronate like I do, sometimes that additional offset feels really comfortable, and these did feel really comfortable right from the start. Okay, so a couple of pieces of technology that they have embedded within that Flight Foam Blast Plus material. They have in the heel gel, they call it pure gel, and then in the arch of the shoe, now this is the stability piece, and they call it a 4D guidance system. Now, I did notice that right off the bat, and it's probably worth noting, because I haven't mentioned this in a while, but I severely overpronate. So my ankles turn in. That's just my biomechanics. And I'm also flat-footed. My feet are extremely flat. And so if you have a high arch, you might not even notice that 4D guidance system, but for someone like myself who, I overpronate with flat feet, I noticed it right off the bat. And so when I stepped into these shoes, what happens is that Flight Foam Blast Plus material, you sink into that foam, but then that 4D guidance system helps to give you some arch support. So I literally felt like I kind of came down like this. And so my feet were on a bit of an angle. But it puts me in a really healthy level of pronation. And I found it to be really, really comfortable. Really comfortable. And I'm going to talk more about the ride here in just a second. Okay, so before we get into that, let's go ahead and flip this over, and we're going to take a look at the outsole. Now here they've got two different types of rubber here, but they use their AHAR rubber sparingly. Now the AHAR is simply Asics high abrasion rubber. Now they included that in the heel area, and it's a small patch in the heel, but that's really where you might need it to be because that's a high impact area. Now it doesn't appear as though they put that the high abrasion rubber in the toe. I kind of wish that they would have, because that's really the two areas where I have seen shoes of mine in the past show wear first. It's either going to be in the heel or where you toe off. But it looks like they only included the A-hard rubber in the heel. But if you're a heel striker and you look at the bottom of your shoes, and that's oftentimes where you start to see wear, they got you covered, because that high vibration rubber is going to last a long time. It's going to last a really long time. The rest of the rubber that they have here is their hybrid Asics grip. And it does a really good job. You know, I've had these out in some wet conditions, and I felt like it was sticking to the road pretty well. Not so much that it was inhibiting my run, but enough where I felt safe and secure. And as you can see, they've got nearly the entire bottom of the shoe covered. They do have this groove that runs along the center of the shoe here without any of that, the hybrid Asics grip rubber. But you can see that 4D guidance system, that is completely covered over here. So they did a really good job protecting all of that Flight Foam Blast Plus material and that 4D guidance system. And the rubber is fairly thick. And you know, that's not a bad thing on a daily trainer. We're going to be just logging lots and lots of miles. Okay, so let's talk about some of the stability features. I mentioned the 4D guidance system, which I think does a really, really good job. And again, because I overpronate severely and I have flat feet, I noticed it. And I feel like it gave me a lot of support when I was running. It was keeping me in a really healthy level of pronation, and it felt good. I mean, it felt really good. And these shoes are pretty smooth and fun to run in. And we'll take a look at the geometry of that because that's a part of it. Now, they do have a heel bevel here, and that heel bevel is slightly offset. So if you're coming down this way and rolling through your foot strike, through your gait, it's a very smooth transition. And they do have a nice rocker design up here, right about at the metatarsal head. Here's where that rocker starts. So it's a very smooth running shoe. It's not necessarily the fastest shoe on the market, even though it has Flight Foam Blast material for the midsole. It's a stability shoe. And as I mentioned, you know, it's 10.6 ounces, 300 grams. So it's not the lightest daily trainer that's out there, but that's not what they're going for here. If you're looking for a speed day shoe, you know, they've got that covered. They got you covered. All you have to do is look in their Nova Blast lineup of shoes and pick from one of those, because they're pretty awesome. But for a stability shoe, it's going to keep you, like I said, in a healthy level of pronation. These are really comfortable. These are really comfortable to run in. And another part of the stability feature, and you know, I talked about the 4D guidance system, but is just look how wide these are. This is a really wide landing platform from the forefoot all the way basically down through the heel. It does narrow up just a little bit, but for the most part, look at that. These are really wide. So that gives you a nice, stable feeling as you strike the ground and you move through your gait. Absolutely love it. And when I was running in these, I've had these out a couple different times. So bear in mind that this is really one of those first impression videos, because I've only had these out on a couple of workouts, but I'll do a much more extensive review and we'll take a look at durability and things once I've logged in a lot more miles in these. But I have enough in these to be able to share my thoughts with you here today. But they feel really good. And for me, when I was striking right about, of course, right here's that 4D guidance system, and turn around so that you can see it here. But when I was striking right towards maybe the end of it, right up towards closer to my forefoot of my shoe, boy, that felt good. It felt really good. I felt like I was just rolling through my foot strike. So a really smooth, consistent, comfortable ride. Again, this isn't going to be your speed day shoe. It's probably not one that you're going to want to take out on maybe a 5K effort where you're trying to set a personal best or something like that. But if you want to log some really long, comfortable miles, this shoe's got it going on. Oh, one of the things I didn't mention, I do like to mention this from time to time, is that they do have a removable insole, which I think is really nice. It's a fairly thick ortholite insole, and it adds even more cushion to your run experience. But one of the things I appreciate about being able to pull this out is that, you know, your feet sweat, they get dirty. It's nice to be able to pull these out, wash them up, and then put them back in your shoes so you're good to go the next time you want to go out for a run. Or if you want to maybe switch these out for your favorite, sock liner, insole, you could do that. I wouldn't suggest putting in an orthotic in these because for me, that 4D guidance system is plenty. I don't think that you're going to want more than what this is going to give you. And again, that feeling when you step into these, that comfort, that flight foam blast material, it just sinks in so that your feet kind of hug around that 4D guidance system to keep in that healthy level of pronation. And it felt really good. Felt really good to me. All right, so do I think it's worth $165 US? Boy, that is a lot of money. But if you need the support, it's a really comfortable stability shoe to run in. And, it ranks right up there with the best that's out there on the market that I've run in. And, I will do a comparison with this and maybe some of the other max cushion stability shoes that are out there, like the Gaviota, for example. All right. Hey, thanks for making it to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed making it for you. As always, run tall, run strong, be kind to one another. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time right here on Run Tall with Tim.